Carl Jung discovered the most powerful empath response to gaslighting. And it's not gathering evidence, not explaining yourself better, not trying to make them see the truth. It's something that feels completely wrong, but removes the gaslighter's power instantly. In 1921, Jung treated a patient, we'll call her Sophia, who'd spent 3 years trying to convince her husband that conversations he denied having actually happened. She kept detailed journals, saved letters, recorded exact dates and times. The more evidence she gathered, the more he insisted she was delusional. By the time she came to Jung, Sophia couldn't trust her own memory. She'd lie awake replaying conversations, wondering if she'd imagined them. She was on the verge of complete psychological collapse. Jung told her something that changed everything. You're not losing your mind. You're losing a game you were never meant to win. The most powerful response isn't better evidence, it's refusing to play. If you've ever felt like you're going crazy while trying to prove you're sane, you're experiencing what Jung called the gaslighting trap, and understanding why empaths fall into it reveals the only response that actually works. When Sophia first came to Jung's practice in Zurich, she brought 3 years of documentation. Journals filled with conversations her husband later denied, letters he claimed he never sent, records of promises he insisted he never made. She'd spent hundreds of hours organizing this evidence, cross-referencing dates, building an airtight case. She told Jung, "If I can just show him the proof, he'll have to admit the truth, then we can finally move forward." But Jung recognized something Sophia couldn't see. She was playing a game designed for her to lose. Her husband wasn't denying reality because he lacked evidence. He was denying reality because denying reality gave him power. Every time Sophia tried to prove what happened, she handed him that power again. This is the gaslighting trap. When your greatest strength as an empath becomes the weapon used against you. Empaths are wired to seek truth, to value authenticity, to believe that understanding creates connection. These are beautiful qualities, but manipulators exploit them ruthlessly. Here's what Jung understood that Sophia didn't. This pattern isn't about truth, it's about control. The person distorting reality isn't confused about what happened. They're invested in making you confused about what happened. When you gather evidence, you're operating from the assumption that this is a good faith disagreement about facts. But reality distortion isn't a disagreement. It's a power play. You're trying to win a debate that was never about truth in the first place. Modern neuroscience explains why this is so devastating. Dr. Bessel van der Kolk's research on trauma shows that reality distortion creates what he calls cognitive dissonance overload. Your brain has 2 conflicting pieces of information, what you experienced and what you're being told you experienced. The brain cannot hold both as true, so it has to choose, trust yourself or trust the relationship. And for empaths, who often learned in childhood to prioritize others' realities over their own, the brain frequently chooses relationship over reality. This creates a split in consciousness. Part of you knows what happened. Another part desperately wants to believe their version so the relationship can survive. This split is what makes you feel like you're going crazy, because in a sense, you are being driven toward psychological fragmentation. Studies on trauma bonding show that this pattern activates the same brain regions as physical abuse. When someone alternates between invalidating your reality and showing you affection, your brain becomes addicted to resolving the cognitive dissonance by accepting their version of events. Sophia had experienced this for 3 years. Her husband would deny a conversation. She'd show him her journal entry. He'd say, "You wrote that because you're paranoid." She'd explain why she wasn't paranoid. He'd say, "See, you're getting defensive. That's how I know you're unstable." Every attempt to prove her sanity became evidence of her instability. Every piece of evidence she gathered became another opportunity for him to suggest she was obsessive. The game was rigged, and Jung saw that the only way to win was to stop playing. If you've tried to prove your reality to someone who denies it, comment, "I gathered evidence." Because understanding why evidence never works reveals the three responses empaths use that actually strengthen the manipulation, and why the most powerful response requires doing something that feels completely counterintuitive. Jung observed that empaths facing reality distortion typically cycle through three responses. Each one feels logical. Each one makes the situation worse. Sophia's journals filled shelf after shelf, every conversation documented, every promise recorded, every inconsistency noted. When I finally show him all of this, he'll have to see. He'll have no choice but to admit the truth. In session, Jung asked her, "And when you've shown him evidence before, what happened?" Sophia's face fell. "He says I'm obsessed, that keeping all these records proves I'm paranoid, that normal people don't document everything their spouse says. So the evidence you gather to prove you're not crazy becomes his evidence that you are crazy?" Sophia nodded, tears forming. That was exactly what happened. This is the first trap, believing that enough evidence will force acknowledgement. But people invested in denying reality don't deny because they lack information. They deny because denial serves them. One of Jung's other patients had recorded conversations with her manipulative partner. When she played them back, he said, "You edited these. You're trying to frame me. This is psychotic behavior." The recording, irrefutable evidence of his exact words, became proof of her instability. The evidence trap works like this. Your attempts to document reality get reframed as obsessive behavior, which becomes additional evidence of your mental instability. Sylvia Plath kept detailed journals documenting Ted Hughes's affairs and emotional abuse. He constantly insisted she was jealous, paranoid, mentally ill. Her journals, which should have validated her reality, were later used as evidence of her instability. After her death, Hughes controlled her literary estate and destroyed significant portions of her diaries. The evidence never protected her. Dr. Jennifer Freed's research on Darvo explains this pattern. When confronted with evidence, manipulators follow three steps: deny the reality, attack the person presenting evidence, reverse roles, making themselves the victim of false accusations. Sophia experienced this exactly. She'd present evidence, he'd deny, she'd insist, he'd attack. "You're harassing me with your paranoid accusations." Then reverse. "I'm the victim here. I have to walk on eggshells around your instability." Empaths believe documentation creates accountability, but manipulators reframe documentation as harassment. Every journal entry becomes proof you're obsessive. Every saved text becomes proof you're controlling. The evidence trap keeps you playing the game. You keep gathering proof. They keep denying. You gather more proof. They escalate the denial. The cycle continues until you collapse from exhaustion or accept their reality to preserve your sanity. When evidence didn't work, Sophia tried explaining. Different words, different angles, different approaches. If I could just explain it clearly enough, he'd see what he's doing. He'd understand how his denial makes me feel. Hundreds of explanations, maybe thousands. And not once did he say, "Oh, now I understand, you're right. That did happen." Hours of explaining. Her voice hoarse by the end of each conversation. Her mind foggy from searching for the perfect words that would finally break through. He'd listen, nod, then, "I hear what you're saying, but you're remembering it wrong." Or, "I understand you feel that way, but your feelings don't change reality." He used therapy language, validation language, but underneath, the message was clear: your reality is invalid. Jung treated another patient whose partner was even more sophisticated. I validate your feelings, but I can't validate a false memory. I care about you too much to enable your delusions. Reality distortion dressed in compassion. I'm denying your reality because I love you. Research on manipulation stages shows that constant explanation depletes cognitive resources. Your brain is working overtime, trying to make sense of the cognitive dissonance, searching for the perfect words that will bridge the gap. But there is no perfect explanation, because the problem isn't your communication, it's their investment in denial. Sophia would explain until exhausted. The next day, they'd be back at the beginning. He'd deny something new. She'd explain again. The cycle consumed her life. Empaths believe understanding creates connection. Manipulators exploit this belief. They let you explain endlessly, which serves three purposes. It exhausts you. It keeps you engaged in trying to fix the relationship. It prevents you from taking action based on what you know. The explanation cycle is a trap disguised as communication. One woman wrote during her darkest period, "Perhaps I am mad. Perhaps everything I think I see is delusion. How can I trust my own mind when he seems so certain? What if the problem is me?" The woman was Zelda Fitzgerald. Her husband, F. Scott Fitzgerald, was an alcoholic who had affairs, but when Zelda confronted him, he insisted she was mentally ill, jealous, paranoid. He had her institutionalized multiple times. She wrote in her journals about doubting her own sanity, questioning every perception, wondering if she was the unstable one. Zelda was institutionalized while Scott's alcoholism and infidelity continued, unchallenged. The reality distortion succeeded. She doubted herself into submission. By the time Sophia came to Jung, she was drowning in the same spiral. Maybe I am overreacting. Maybe I do remember things wrong. Maybe I am too sensitive. He seems so certain. What if he's right and I'm the one who's confused? This is the third trap, the self-doubt spiral, the most insidious trap of all. Reality distortion doesn't just make you doubt specific memories. It makes you doubt your capacity to perceive reality accurately. It creates a split between you and your own perception. Jung recognized this as a form of dissociation. Sophia was no longer integrated with her own experience. She'd see something happen, then immediately question, "Did I really see that? Did I understand it correctly? Am I being too sensitive?" The constant questioning fractured her relationship with herself. The moment you doubt your perception, you've handed them the weapon. Because now, they don't have to convince you your reality is false. You're doing it to yourself. Research on emotion and perception shows that when someone you're attached to consistently contradicts your experience, the brain faces a crisis: maintain accurate perception or maintain the attachment. For empaths, especially those with childhood histories of invalidation, the brain often chooses attachment. It's less threatening to doubt yourself than to accept that someone you love is deliberately distorting reality. This creates what researchers call betrayal trauma. Your brain knows something is wrong, but cannot fully acknowledge it without destabilizing the relationship. Sophia experienced this as constant second-guessing. She'd replay conversations obsessively, trying to determine if she'd misunderstood. She'd analyze her reactions, wondering if she was too emotional. She'd question everything about herself, while questioning nothing about him. The self-doubt spiral is the final stage before collapse. Sophia was there when she found Jung. If you've been stuck in the explanation cycle or drowning in self-doubt, comment. I kept questioning myself. Because these three responses, gathering evidence, endless explanation, self-doubt, all share one fatal flaw. They keep you playing a game designed for you to lose. But Jung taught Sophia something that changed everything. In their third session, Jung gave Sophia an instruction that seemed impossible. Stop trying to convince him. Stop gathering evidence. Stop explaining. In fact, stop discussing reality with him altogether. Sophia was horrified. But if I don't defend my perception, he wins. He gets to control what's real. Jung shook his head. He already controls what's real, in his mind. The question is, will you let him control what's real in yours? This is the most powerful response. Strategic withdrawal from the reality negotiation. Not running away, not giving up, but refusing to participate in a debate about what happened. The insight was radical. Manipulators require your participation in the debate about reality. Without your participation, the game cannot continue. The technique has 4 elements. Jung taught Sophia to document differently, not to prove to him, to validate for herself. Write what happened, not to show anyone, to remind yourself, this is what I experienced, this is what I know. The journal shifted from evidence to affirmation, from external tool to internal anchor. Every time her husband denied something, instead of showing him the journal, Sophia would read it privately and think, I know what happened. His denial doesn't change reality. This is the foundation. You trust your perception as final authority, not because you're never wrong, but because your perception is the only reality you can act on. The next time Sophia's husband denied a conversation, she used a new response. Not, yes, you did. I wrote it down. Here's the date. But, I know what I experienced. I'm not discussing this further. Then silence. He pushed. You're doing it again, making things up. She repeated, I know what I experienced. I'm not discussing this. He escalated. This is crazy. You can't just refuse to talk about this. She stood up. I'm not discussing this further. And left the room. This felt impossible to Sophia. Every fiber of her being wanted to defend herself, to explain, to make him see. But the debate is the trap. When you defend, you're accepting the premise that your reality is up for negotiation. It's not. Refusing the debate isn't aggressive. It's not even defensive. It's simply declining to treat your reality as questionable. Key phrases. I know what I experienced. I'm not discussing this further. You can believe what you want. I know what happened. This conversation is over. Then actual silence. Not explanation of why you're ending the conversation, just ending it. By month 4, Sophia stopped trying to change his mind. She changed her behavior based on what she knew. Without waiting for his admission, without his validation, without his confession, she acted on reality. She moved to separate bedroom, opened separate bank account, stopped attending events with him, started planning exit strategy. Her husband was stunned. You can't do this without talking to me. I'm not asking permission. I'm informing you of my decisions. This felt harsh to her. But actions speak when words fail. She didn't need his confession to take care of herself. The hardest element, accepting that he might never admit the truth. He could deny reality forever. That was his choice. But his denial didn't obligate her to doubt herself. She could know what she knew, while he denied what he denied. This meant accepting that the relationship might not survive truth. Why this response is most powerful? It removes the fuel. Manipulators need your engagement in the debate, your defensiveness, your attempts to prove yourself. Without these, the dynamic collapses. You're not fighting them. You're not explaining yourself. You're simply living in your reality while they live in theirs. This drives manipulators to escalation, but the escalation reveals their true nature. If you're ready to stop playing the game, comment, I'm withdrawing from the debate. Because what Jung taught Sophia required not just understanding, but courage to face what happens when you stop participating. Sophia implemented Jung's technique over 6 months. Here's what happened. Month 1. She stopped gathering evidence, stopped explaining, The first week felt unbearable. Every time her husband denied something, she wanted to prove it. Her hands itched for her journal. Her mouth wanted to explain. But she held the line. "I know what happened. I'm not discussing this." He was confused at first. This wasn't the game they'd played for 3 years. Month 2. Her husband escalated dramatically. When withdrawal from the debate didn't bring her back, he intensified. New accusations appeared. "You're being cold. You're shutting me out. You're punishing me with silence." This is emotional abuse. Jung had warned her. When you stop playing, they escalate. This is confirmation you're doing it right. Manipulators need you engaged. When you disengage, they'll do everything to pull you back in. Her husband recruited others. He told friends, "She's acting strange. I'm worried about her mental health. She refuses to communicate." Researchers call these recruited allies flying monkeys, people the manipulator uses to pressure you back into the game. By the 3rd month, friends were calling. "He's really concerned about you. Maybe you should talk to him about what's bothering you." Sophia: "I've talked for 3 years. I'm done talking. But he says you're refusing to communicate." "I'm refusing to debate my reality." "That's different." Some friends understood. Some chose his version. Sophia had to accept losing relationships built on her self-betrayal. Jung had told her, "Every person who falls away because you stopped. Doubting yourself is revealing that they needed you doubtful. Let them go." By the 4th month, she started making decisions based on what she knew. She moved to separate bedroom. She opened separate bank account. She stopped attending events with him. She started planning exit strategy. Her husband was stunned. "You can't do this without talking to me." "I'm not asking permission. I'm informing you of my decisions." This felt harsh to her, but she was being sane. She was acting on reality instead of pretending his denial changed reality. Over the next 2 months, accusations grew wilder. "You're having an affair. You're stealing from me. You're poisoning everyone against me." The reality distortion intensified because it was failing. Desperate attempts to regain control. Jung had told Sophia, "His escalation is evidence you're succeeding. Manipulators only escalate when they're losing power." By month 6, Sophia knew with complete clarity her husband would never admit truth. He was committed to denial. She left, not in confusion, not doubting herself, not wondering if she'd tried hard enough. She left knowing, "I saw what I saw. I know what I know. His denial doesn't change reality." The predictable pattern when you stop playing. Stage 1, confusion. Why aren't you defending yourself? Stage 2, escalation, more dramatic accusations, recruiting others. Stage 3, rage. How dare you treat me like this? Stage 4, bargaining. Let's just talk about this reasonably. Stage 5, smear campaign, telling everyone you're unstable. Very few admit truth. Most escalate until you either return to the game or leave entirely. Reality distortion requires your participation in the negotiation. Withdrawal removes their power. But withdrawal requires accepting the relationship may not survive truth, and that's why most people stay trapped rather than risk the loss. The paradox. Staying in the game guarantees psychological destruction. You'll lose yourself trying to prove yourself. Leaving the game risks relationship destruction, but the relationship was already built on your self-betrayal. A relationship that requires you to doubt your own perception is not a relationship. It's a hostage situation. If you've experienced the escalation after setting boundaries, comment, "They escalated when I stopped." Because the aftermath of leaving the game requires rebuilding something the manipulation destroyed. Trust in your own perception. 6 months after leaving her husband, Sophia sat in Jung's office describing a new problem. "I'm free of him, but I'm not free of the doubt. I still question everything I perceive. How do I trust myself again? This is the final work. Repairing the fracture between you and your perception. Reality distortion doesn't just damage your relationship with the manipulator. It damages your relationship with yourself. You've learned to doubt your primary source of information about reality, your own experience. The integration process for rebuilding perceptual trust. Start small. Don't try to trust your judgment about big things immediately. Sophia began with tiny perceptions. I feel cold right now. Notice if you want to question this. Practice. Yes, I feel cold. That's true. I'm hungry. Notice doubt. Practice. Yes, I'm hungry. I trust this. That person just cut in line. Notice wanting to think maybe you misunderstood. Practice. No, they cut. I saw it. Small truths, repeated daily, rebuild the neural pathway of trusting your perception. Within 2 months, Sophia could identify, I'm angry, without immediately questioning if she was overreacting. I don't like this person, without wondering if she was being too judgmental. Continue journaling, but with new purpose, not to prove to others, to validate yourself. Today this happened. I experienced it this way. This is my reality. The journal becomes a record of your perceptions being valid, being yours, being trustworthy. Over time, you accumulate evidence, not for others, but for yourself. My perceptions have been accurate. I can trust them. Sophia joined a support group for people who'd experienced manipulation. For the first time, she spoke about her experiences and heard, yes, that happened. Yes, you saw it clearly. Yes, you're not crazy. After reality distortion, you need people who don't make you question your sanity. People who respond to your perceptions with, I believe you. That's real. Trust yourself. Not flying monkeys. Not people who say, well, maybe he didn't mean it that way. Not people who suggest you're too sensitive. People who validate, your reality is valid. Your body knows truth, even when your mind doubts. Sophia learned to notice physical responses. When he denied reality, what did your body feel? Tightness in my chest, nausea, like I couldn't breathe. And when you finally trusted your perception, relief, lightness, like I could breathe again. The body doesn't lie. When something feels wrong, it is wrong, even if you can't articulate why. If my body reacts with tension, dread, or nausea around someone's version of reality, that's information. I trust the somatic signal. The integration. After a year of this work, Sophia told Jung, I still doubt sometimes, but now I catch it. I notice when I'm questioning myself unnecessarily, and I can choose to trust my perception, not I'll never be fooled again. That's rigidity born from trauma, but I trust myself to know what I know. That's sovereignty. Sophia's final insight. For 3 years, I needed him to believe me. I thought without his validation, my reality wasn't real. Now I understand. I don't need anyone to believe me. I believe me. That's enough. The most powerful response isn't a clever comeback. It's not a perfect explanation. It's not even standing up for yourself in the moment. The most powerful response is this: trusting your perception so completely that no one else's denial can shake it. Refusing to debate reality with someone invested in distortion. Acting on what you know regardless of whether they admit it. This removes the manipulator's power completely, not by defeating them in argument, but by withdrawing from the game altogether. You didn't survive reality distortion to spend the rest of your life doubting yourself. You survived it to discover what Jung knew. Your perception is the ground you stand on. No one can take that ground unless you hand it to them. The most powerful response is keeping your ground. Thanks for watching. See you in the next dimension.